Rain, London, a familiar cafe. Daniel saw her through the misty window. He hadn't seen Amelia in years, not since their university days. Her smile, once directed at him, now belonged to the man across from her. Daniel's heart ached, a dull, persistent throb. He remembered the warmth of her hand in his, the way her laughter filled his days with sunshine. Those memories, once cherished, now felt like shards of glass, sharp and painful. He watched them, his Amelia and her husband, oblivious to his presence. Daniel hesitated, unsure if he should leave or stay. A part of him, a foolish, hopeful part, yearned to talk to her, to see if she still remembered, if she still felt the same spark. But deep down, he knew that some bridges once burned could never truly be rebuilt. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine, a prickle of awareness that she couldn't quite place. She turned, half expecting to see a familiar face, but the street was filled with strangers, their faces obscured by umbrellas and indifference. "Just the rain," she murmured, more to herself than to her husband Mark. Mark, ever the pragmatist, squeezed her hand. "Let's go, love. The theatre won't wait for us." His voice was kind, his touch reassuring, but Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that someone from her past was lingering nearby. She tried to focus on the play, on the colorful costumes and dramatic dialogues, but her thoughts kept drifting back to her university years, to a time when life was simpler, filled with laughter and late-night study sessions. And Daniel, his face, always so full of life, haunted her thoughts. Mark was a good man, stable, reliable, everything she thought she wanted. He gave her the security and comfort she craved after a childhood marked by uncertainty. He loved her, in his own way, she knew that. Yet sometimes, late at night, when she lay awake in their shared bed, she couldn't help but wonder if she had made the right choice. She had chosen practicality over passion, security over the unknown. Daniel, with his impulsive nature and artistic dreams, had scared her. He represented a life less ordinary, a life she wasn't sure she was brave enough to live. And so she let him go. She had convinced herself that she had moved on, that her feelings for Daniel were just a youthful infatuation. But the sudden wave of longing that washed over her at the mere thought of him told a different story. A story she had buried deep within her heart. Daniel watched them leave the cafe, their umbrellas bumping playfully against each other. He saw the way Mark tucked Amelia's hand under his arm, a gesture that spoke of intimacy and shared history. He felt a pang of envy, sharp and bitter, twisting in his gut. He knew it was irrational, this jealousy. Amelia had made her choice, and he had to respect that. He had spent years trying to forget her, to move on, but some loves, he realized, were like stubborn vines, clinging to the walls of your heart, refusing to be uprooted. He thought of his own life, his own successes and failures. He had achieved his dreams, traveled the world, yet there was an emptiness inside him, a void that no amount of success could fill. He had loved Amelia with a ferocity that scared him, a love that consumed him entirely, and in the end, it had not been enough. The next day, Daniel found himself drawn back to the cafe. He couldn't explain it, this pull he felt, this irrational hope that he might see her again. And there she was, sitting at the same table, a book in her hand, a look of quiet contemplation on her face. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, a hint of the girl she used to be, the girl who laughed easily and dreamt big dreams. He wanted to go to her, to speak to her, but his feet felt rooted to the spot. She looked away first, her cheeks flushed, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. He saw the way her gaze darted towards the door, a mixture of hope and apprehension in her eyes. She was waiting for him to make a move, he realized. But what move could he possibly make that wouldn't shatter the fragile peace they had built around their broken hearts? Amelia's heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic rhythm that echoed the turmoil within her. She had seen him, really seen him, not just a fleeting glimpse through a rain-streaked window. The years had been kind to him, etching lines of maturity onto his face. But his eyes, those expressive, soulful eyes, still held the same warmth, the same intensity that had drawn her to him all those years ago. She wanted to run, to escape the torrent of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. But a part of her, a reckless, hopeful part, urged her to stay, to see what would happen if she finally acknowledged the elephant in the room, the unspoken truth that hung heavy between them. She thought of Mark, of his unwavering love and support. He didn't deserve this sudden intrusion from her past. She had made a promise, a commitment, and she wouldn't betray that. And yet, she couldn't deny the sliver of longing that pierced through her resolve, the yearning for a different life, a life she had once believed could be hers. Daniel saw the conflict in her eyes, the push and pull between desire and duty. He knew he should walk away, let her have her perfect life, the life he could never give her. But he couldn't help himself. He needed to be closer, to hear her voice, to see if the years had dulled the memory of her laughter. He walked towards her, each step a testament to his foolish heart. As he got closer, he saw the way her breath hitched, the way her gaze fixed on his, a mixture of fear and longing in their depths. He stopped at her table, a silent question hanging in the air between them. "Amelia," he breathed, his voice rough with emotion. "It's been a long time." The words felt inadequate, meaningless in the face of the emotions that raged within him. He wanted to say more, to tell her how he felt, but the weight of years, of unspoken words and missed opportunities, pressed down on him, suffocating him. The sound of his voice, familiar yet distant, sent a shiver down Amelia's spine. She had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed the words she would say, the casual indifference she would portray. But now, faced with the reality of his presence, all those carefully constructed facades crumbled around her. "Daniel," she managed, her voice a mere whisper. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for a fleeting moment, it was as if no time had passed at all. They were back in that crowded university library, stealing glances over dusty textbooks, their unspoken feelings shimmering in the air between them. "How have you been?" he asked, his voice laced with a tenderness that made her heart ache. The question, so simple, so mundane, felt loaded with unspoken meaning. How had she been? She had built a life, a good life, but was it a happy one? The answer, she realized, was far more complicated than she cared to admit. The cafe faded around them, the clatter of dishes and murmur of conversations reduced to a dull roar. They talked, catching up on lost time, carefully avoiding the landmines of the past. He told her about his travels, his work, his life, and she listened, captivated by the familiar cadence of his voice. She, in turn, spoke of her husband, her work, the small details of her life. But each word felt like a betrayal, a stark reminder of the chasm that separated them. They were two ships passing in the night, their paths converging for a fleeting moment before diverging once more. As the cafe began to empty, they both knew it was time to say goodbye. He walked her to the bus stop, the silence between them filled with unspoken words and lingering regrets. "Take care, Amelia," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It was good to see you." And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the London crowd, leaving Amelia to grapple with the bittersweet ache of what could have been.